natural born entrepreneur. I don't know who wrote this, not I, and I was definitely not born an entrepreneur. I'll tell you all about it. My name is Leo, I'm 31 years old, so about 10 years ago I was sitting exactly in your seat. It's very exciting to be speaking with you all. Since then, I've graduated from Concordia, John Molson School of Business. I did a double major, marketing and finance, so I went through the process of university. But while I was there, I ran 2 businesses. I had Airbnb apartments, 6 of them, that I exited when university ended, and a student painting franchise, which I ran for 4 years, and that taught me amazing lessons. Since then, started Vision Dev with my partner. We've completed for close to $25 million worth of real estate projects in a 6-year period. It's been one hell of a journey. I'll be happy to share it all with you and the lessons I've learned throughout. I don't have my own lessons to share to you. All the lessons I've learned from mentors, from teachers that I trusted, and I applied these lessons, and now I can tell you that they turned out to be true. So I'll share the same ones with you. You do whatever you want with them. So I was not born an entrepreneur, and that's my first lesson, actually. As a high school student, as a teenager, I didn't really have direction. I was more interested in exploring. I was being more creative. I was an artist. I loved snowboarding, BMXing in the summer. Really like nothing about ambition and focus and money. Although I did grow up with 2 entrepreneur parents, both self-employed. My mother was a real estate broker, residential real estate broker. My dad has his own sporting good distribution business. So I did had them as models, but they never really pushed me into any direction. And that's something I'm very grateful about. Because my next lesson is one that definitely all of you probably heard. Raise your hand if you heard it. Follow your heart. Who didn't hear this lesson before, right? If you're happy in what you're doing, you will not work a day in your life. We all heard that, right? And they let me find what made me happy. And that's what I'm grateful for. Lots of parents, they want a lot for their children, and they might direct them a bit. They let me find my way. And I found it in my last year before getting into university. At this point, a good friend of mine was telling me he was applying for the business program of John Molson School of Business. And I don't remember exactly why, but it got me very excited. I guess it had something to do with making money. I always liked to make money when I had my first job when I was 14 years old. I liked to spend it more than make it. I guess that's what I was interested about. But for some reason, it struck me. And for the first time in my life, I decided to actually apply myself to school because I did not have the R score to get in this program. So in one semester, I had to raise my R score by a couple points. So I started actually paying attention in class. For the first time, I would actually go see the teacher after class to make sure I understood the material properly. I would follow the guidelines, and after a full semester of being focused, I managed to bring my R score up enough that I got into the program. It doesn't seem like a crazy story, but for me, it was the first time that I realized that when something came from within, when I was really passionate about a project, a vision, a goal, something clicked. And I felt very powerful. And nobody told me to do that. Intrinsic motivation is very powerful, and you should allow yourself to find what you truly love, because it's the only way you're going to be able to succeed. So then I got into university. The intrinsic motivation kind of quickly faded out. I found that university was too theoretical, too intellectual, not concrete enough, and I started losing that motivation. So I was open for business. I was open for opportunities. And I was speaking with a buddy of mine one evening in class, and he was telling me about this program he had been involved in the previous summer, and at which he had failed miserably, and how much money he had lost doing it. And it was a student painting franchise. So basically, he would spend his winter selling painting contracts to homeowners, and then in the summer hiring students, training them, running his business, his production season, producing these contracts, and trying to earn as much money as possible during one semester. To him, what sounded like a nightmare sounded like paradise to me. I thought it was such a brilliant idea and a great way to learn about running a business. I signed up. And for some reason, I had already signed up for a student exchange that year, so I had to postpone the project for an entire year. But side note, your university students, or lots of you are, that's one of the greatest opportunities you have in university, aside from starting your own business. It's to go on student exchanges. It's an opportunity that's reserved to university students. There are scholarships available. You can pretty much go anywhere in the world. You should take advantage of that. So while I was studying abroad, I was staying with my roommate from Montreal, Erin. And all along through the winter, I was bugging her about this program I was so excited to get into the next summer. And when we came back and I got into the program, I was quite excited to see that she was sitting next to me and she had signed up for the program also, because I guess I was so enthusiastic about it. And we did our business together that year, or alongside. So started the program, I was assigned a coach, and then we started learning everything about running a business. Learned about sales, learned about management, learned about leadership, learned about hiring students. And one thing in particular they put a lot of emphasis on, and it was goal setting. Finding your first year goal was an actually very important step in the process. It had to be a SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Lots of letters, because it's really important you set the right goal. It has to be not too big that it's not going to be attainable, and it's got to be not too small that it's not exciting you from within. Again, that intrinsic motivation. That goal has to be strong. And from there, when you set your goal, and for us it was revenue goals, let's say, well, my first year I set a goal at $100,000 in revenue, then you break down this goal into pieces. That's what they told us. That's what they taught us. And let's say it's a $100,000 goal. An average job would be $1,000. That means it's 100 jobs. And let's say your closing rate when you're meeting with clients is 50%. That means you need to meet with 200 clients. And on, you can break down your goal into bite-sized pieces, weekly goals, actionable items. And if you're committed enough to your goal, you only have to follow the steps and trust the process. And trust the process I did, religiously. Really, I was so afraid of not getting to my goal that every week I would do whatever I could to just attain my weekly goal. I trusted in my coaches, I trusted in the process, and in the end, it worked. And I actually went above my goal and finished with 140, I think, my first year. And it was an amazing lesson I had learned. And from then on, everything I have done in my life, there was a goal attached to it. And I would spend a lot of time breaking it down into pieces so I could, into manageable pieces. Because if you have a large goal, if you're ambitious, you need to be able to break it down into pieces, or else you're going to get lost in it. The second lesson, or the third lesson that came in this program came from a buddy of mine. Actually, this lesson comes from a book. Anybody heard of the book, The E-Myth? It's a book you should all read if you're interested in entrepreneurship. And there's a key lesson that comes off of this book, and it's that you should always be, or as much as possible, be working on your business rather than working in your business. Again, Justin was talking about it today. You should be working as much as possible in the creator time. You should be working on strategizing, planning, setting up processes, hiring the right people, more than you spend on working in the field. Your team should be working in the field. You should be organizing your team. And this lesson got illustrated in the program, in the painting program, so well by one of my peers. Somehow he had sold an amazing season of painting. All through winter, he sold a whole bunch of contracts. And he was preparing to have a crazy summer of production. And for some reason, he lost his driver's license. A nightmare, right? He had all these teams that he had to attend to, all these clients he had to visit. Everything was happening in the field, and he had no longer a car to do his job. So what was about to be a catastrophe, in the end, turned into a great lesson, because what he ended up doing was to empower his teams, to set up processes, to plan better, work from his office. He ended up spending the whole season working on his business and letting his team run the business for him. And his business soared. And to me, that was a very influential lesson. From that day on, I started wearing khakis and a white shirt. Because when I'd visit my teams, I would not be tempted to go and micromanage all the painting they were doing and help them carry the ladders and all of that. My job was in the office, their job was in the field. And it worked out very well. And I've been applying this as much as possible since then. So I've run the businesses for 4 years, produced for close to $500,000 worth of painting contracts while I was in university. It was intense. It was a true period of working hard and playing hard, but it was amazing. University ended, and one thing I didn't mention up till now is that this whole experience as a student painter, I shared with this sexy gentleman right there, Cedric Coulombe, who's become my partner in Vision Dev. Okay. Cedric was a top manager. He ended up being a coach. And at the end, he was vice president of the entire province of Quebec, coaching over 30 managers, and ended up being my coach for some years. And through this, we built quite a strong intimacy in the business context. And we sat down with a pint of beer in a bar in Montreal and started envisioning our future after university, after the painting franchises. And at this point, both of us were very interested in real estate. He had just completed a course in real estate, and on my side, my dad had just sold his multifamily property. So another thing I didn't mention is that right before university, my dad bought his first 30-apartment building, and that was his first venture in commercial real estate, and I got a part of it. I was a painter and eventually a janitor, and at the end a superintendent. I was taking care of the tenants, renting the apartments, collecting rents, etc. I had my Airbnb business in this building, and he decided to sell the building at the end of my university journey. And what I noticed from the exterior is that, well, that's what I thought. My dad had just made more money with this building during these years that he had made with his own business, but working part-time on this building. To me, there was so much money involved in this that we discussed it, Cedric and I, and we thought, what if we apply everything we've learned in business school so far on programming, systemizing, building a structure, scaling, marketing, etc., to what my dad just did and do it like 15 times bigger in shorter amounts of times and become millionaires. So we set up on to start a real estate business at this point based on this idea that we could multiply what my dad had just done. So we started Vision Dev. Initially, we were very interested in development. Eventually, we realized that there was such a great opportunity in existing real estate, so buildings that are already built. So that's what we did. And that's where comes my fourth lesson, one that you probably also all heard. Who heard that it's not what you know, it's who you know? Right? Everybody did. Who, Not How. Another great business book you should all read by Dan Sullivan. Who, Not How. We had very little knowledge about the business we were getting into, and we had basically next to no network in real estate. We decided to start with building that network and learning from experienced people. So we set out on meeting with at least 50 people, the most appropriate people possible in the industry, to learn their secrets, the secret sauce. How do they think? What do they do on a daily basis? So we seeked out some of these people, and that's where we've discovered something quite cool and interesting. And it's that when you go to people for money, say you want to sell them something, or you're looking for investors, typically you'll get advice instead of money. But when you go to people for advice, you tend, and that's the big surprise, you tend to get money, support, resources, help. Because what happens when you go to people for advice? What does that show? It shows humility. It shows a growth mindset. And when people distribute advice, what do they want? They want this advice to be true, and they want it to succeed. So they'll give you advice, and then they'll help you to make sure their advice works. And it happened for us many times over, and some of these mentors that we've met became passive partners in our deals, sharing their resources with us, making sure we succeed. They had a vested interest in us. Somehow they probably saw themselves in us at a younger age. And it was actually so easy to get mentorship that we really based our business off of that. And we've learned from them how to leverage other people's money. They taught us how to do proper optimization in buildings, how to leverage buildings, what the kind of financing that nobody knows about, how to go and get those. They told us to go bigger because they were already 10 times bigger than we were. So to them, it was a very comfortable thing. So they imparted us their mindset and their comfort with larger real estate right off the bat. So we managed to buy a 10-unit property as our first investments, while most people usually start with a single family or a duplex or a triplex. Right away, we were more comfortable because we had these mentors in our back. So that's the fourth lesson I wanted to share with you. So just to give you a bit more context on this business we're running, and we distinguish ourselves from our competitors by spending quite a big amount of time prospecting to finding the best deals. So instead of going on the market, we go off market. We go knock on doors. Literally, I went knocking on doors, landlord doors, to ask them if they wanted to sell us their buildings. Or we work with brokers that work in the off-market field. And then it's the leverage game I was mentioning before. One of the greatest qualities of real estate as an asset, its capacity to be leveraged. You can multiply your capital with financing in real estate like you can't in any other types of assets. And finally, it's the management strategies we use. Okay? A commercial property's worth is a multiplier of its net revenue. Okay? A property's worth is a multiplier of its net revenue. So basically, if you double a property's net revenue, you can double its value. And in this way, you can create tremendous value in a very short period of time. And then when you're working with $10 million properties, that's millions of dollars you can create just in a few years by knowing which levers to pull on. So at scale, real estate becomes an amazing business. And that's what we set out to do. And we're getting there now after 6 years. So that leads me to a final lesson I'd like to share. And that's one lesson that I've been told all my life, but that I only started applying now, wish I did before. And it's keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be fine. I've heard that so many times. Keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be fine. You're going to be great. And I thought people were just patting me on the back, just trying to be nice, trying to make me feel good. But they noticed that I was attending conferences like that as a student. They noticed that I would go to mentors to learn from them. They noticed that I cared and that I was committed. And they didn't say that just to be nice. They meant it. And now I'm saying it to you because I was sitting there and I saw what it did to me. So keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be fine. Thank you.